Welcome to this episode of the UKRunChat podcast. I'm Michelle, and today we're diving into the story behind one of the UK's probably most iconic running events, the London Landmarks Half Marathon. Now, this is a race that's become so much more than just 13.1 miles. It's the only half marathon that takes runners through both Westminster and the City of London. And since launching, the event's grown rapidly, now welcoming around 20,000 runners and supporting not only its founding charity, Tommy's, but over 500 other causes too. And at the heart of it all is Lia Fyles, who's here with us today. What started as a fundraising idea has evolved into one of the most in-demand races in the UK. So in this episode, I'm really excited to be exploring what's behind the event and the challenges of building something at this scale, really, and what makes it so special. Hi, Leah. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Hello there. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Oh, it's really nice to meet you. So take us right back to the beginning then. So what was the original brief when you kind of took on the task of raising income for Tommy's, and tell us a little bit about the charity as well.
Yeah, of course. So I've been working for Tommy's since 2008, so around 18 years now. And Tommy's are the UK's leading baby charity, and they exist to stop the heartbreak and devastation of baby loss. It's a really sad fact that 1 in 2 of us will either have lost a baby or will know someone who has, and Tommy's exists to change that. And they do that by leading research and providing pregnancy information throughout the entire pregnancy journey to help families have the best chance possible of having a healthy baby. And back in 2014, Tommy's was raising an income of around £4 million a year. And it was our strategy to double that income from 4 million to 8 million. And so we had 4 million additional to raise. 2 million of that was going to be raised by doing what we already do, but doing more of it or doing it better. So, for example, bringing on board more corporate partnerships or getting more places in the Great North Run. And the other £2 million was to be raised by doing something brand new. And that was the task that I was
That's
set
huge,
of leading the development of whatever this brand new thing may be, and then making it happen. And that could have been anything, it could have been opening Tommy's charity shops across the country. It could have been an annual TV appeal like Comic Relief. It could have been putting on our own event. And at that time, and still now, Tommy's offices, we are based in the City of London, and we noticed a really big gap in the market in that there wasn't a half marathon that went through the City of London. Yes, there is the amazing and beautiful Royal Parks Half Marathon, which Tommy's has places in as a charity, but there wasn't a half marathon that went slap bang through the centre of London. So perhaps rather naively at the time, we decided that was what we were going to try to pursue. So that decision was taken in kind of late 2014, early 2015. So I essentially spent the following 3.5 years gaining permission to close down central London, working with partners to create the route, creating the brand. And then, the first race happened in March 2018. And it was, literally one of the best and proudest days of my life. I'll never forget that feeling.
I'm sure, yeah. So 4 years in the making, in the imagination, and then it all comes to life. That first day must have been incredible on race morning.
It really was. I'll never, ever forget the feeling of walking out and thinking, oh my gosh, we've done this. We've closed down central London. We've created something that not only is going to raise a lot of money for Tommy's, but it's going to raise a lot of money for many other charities as well. And when we wrote the business plan, the goal was to raise £2 million for Tommy's by year 3 of the event. We actually raised that in year 1. So it was, an incredible success for the charity, and something that we've been able to build on year on year.
Yeah. So why did you choose a running race, and specifically a half marathon? Like, were you a runner yourself?
I wasn't at this point, no. We chose a running race because we could see that there was the demand for it, and because it was such a clear gap in the market. All other major cities in the world have a central a central city race, the Rome half marathon, the Paris half marathon, the New York half marathon. And it was such a clear gap in the market that it was a bit of a no-brainer. At the time, obviously the London Marathon, when you go back to 2004, 14, 15, when we were trying to make this happen, their ballot was, I can't remember, but there were hundreds of thousands applying for it, and we knew the Royal Parks Half Marathon was oversubscribed as well, so we were very confident there was the demand for it. And that there was the gap in the market. And in terms of fundraising, the half marathon distance is a really brilliant distance to fundraise for. It's achievable. Most charities set their fundraising minimum pledge at around £350, £400. It's achievable, and it's a challenge as well. Because if runners running 5-10k, obviously that is still a challenge, but it's perhaps not as fundraisable for than a half marathon is.
Yeah, I think it puts a lot of people off, doesn't it, trying to raise like thousands of pounds for
exactly.
an
it's
event.
More difficult, to raise more. So it's a very achievable fundraising target for most.
Yeah, much more accessible. So did you have a clear vision from the start of what you wanted the event to be, or has that kind of evolved over time?
Yeah, we did have a clear vision. We knew we wanted it to be a central London route. We knew that it had to involve other charities. So yeah, we were quite clear. Yes. Yeah.
So talk us through the route then. What's it like? It's an event that I've not done. I've done the London, the London Marathon, and obviously a lot of the landmarks in the half you can kind of see from there. But I've never experienced your event. So just talk us through the route and what can people expect from it?
Oh yeah, you have to run it next year. The route, oh my gosh, it's absolutely incredible. So it starts on Whitehall, just outside Downing Street, and it finishes by Trafalgar Square. And it's a lovely flat route through central London. And runners get to see Big Ben, St Paul's Cathedral, the London Eye, the Shard, Tower Bridge, the Tower of London, Guildhall Yard. They get to see all of London's most iconic landmarks. But the strapline of the event is the grand, the quirky, the hidden. So the race isn't just about celebrating London's grand, iconic landmarks. It's also about shining a spotlight on its quirky and hidden history. So throughout the route, runners will see we have these big pink signs, and they essentially set out the quirky and hidden things that are along the route that people may not necessarily know about. So some examples are just by Trafalgar Square is Britain's smallest police station. Our route passes very close to a shop called Lock & Co, which is the birthplace of the bowler hat, which is where the bowler hat was found created in 1840. And then also there's Australia House as well. That was used as a setting of Gringotts Bank in Harry Potter. So yeah, we shine a spotlight on the quirky and hidden things along the route, as well as celebrating the grand iconic landmarks.
Oh, that's fab. So there's something to see throughout the whole of the run then.
Oh, there really is. That I think that's one of the things that helps to set us aside from some other races. There's literally and never a dull moment. So I think along the route this year, we have 538 activities happening. And this is a mixture of charity cheer stations, activations that we put on. So by an activation, I mean, the race is about celebrating London's, rich history and its diverse communities. So we have a number of activations where one of these things is celebrated. So, for example, in Guildhall Yard, we have our Roman reception. So in Guildhall Yard, we work with a gladiator reenactment company, and runners can have a selfie with a gladiator. We work with London front runners to put on our Pride Party in Trafalgar Square, which is obviously a celebration of the LGBTQ plus community. We work with London Show Choir to put on an activation, which is all about celebrating, the West End musical scene, and they sing lots of songs from all the different West End performers. So we have 10 of these activations that we put on as a team, and then we empower all of our charities to put on a themed charity cheer station. And those cheer stations, the charities love coming up with the themes for the cheer station. And some of my favourites from over the years have been, I remember one year Alzheimer's Research UK, they had a cheer station which was celebrating London's old markets. So they basically set up a market stand along the route, and they had somebody who was dressed up as Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses, and he was there cheering on the runners. I think it was prostate cancer one year. They set up a London's Victorian pub along the route. We've had the history of the circus. We've had all sorts of themed cheer stations along the route, and charities really, really embrace it. And it just makes a lovely run for the runners. Our runners often say to us, sometimes they don't notice they're actually running because there's so much happening along the route. And we also we have 3 big performance stages, and we work with lots of local musical acts and dance acts to fill those stages with entertainment for the runners throughout the day. And we have a dance performance area as well. My mum's dance group, Shimmy Fusion Cafe, they're a belly dance group, and they're actually performing this year. They've performed every year, actually. Yeah. So it's lovely. I get to see my mum on race day as well, and she's there shimmying away with her dance group. So yeah, there literally never is a dull moment along the route.
Yeah, so there's a lot of storytelling going on there. I love that. I mean, the ballot fills up every year, doesn't it? It's so popular. Why do you think it's resonated so strongly with runners?
Yeah, the ballot, we introduced the ballot in year 2. So in 2019 was our first year we had a ballot. This year the ballot was we couldn't believe it at LLHM HQ. The numbers just kept on coming in. It was so oversubscribed. I think a number of things. I think it's it's being organised by charity for a charity. I think that's a real unique selling point. The fact that it's so charity focused. Around 85% of our places are charity places, so it really means something to run the London Landmarks Half Marathon. And obviously the route. I mean, the route is incredible. To have the opportunity to run through central London on closed roads is a very, very rare opportunity, and we're so fortunate to have the route we have. And the team at Westminster City Council and the City of London Corporation and Transport for London, they are so supportive. And the route it's an absolute cracker. And we also try so hard as well to make the race as inclusive as possible. I think people feel really included when they run our race. Our race isn't about the elite runners. We don't have an elite field. Our race is all about charity runners and celebrating so many good causes. And I think this resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think runners connect differently to an event when there's like a strong charity cause behind them? It does seem to really grab their attention, doesn't it, and gives them a lot of motivation. What are your thoughts behind that?
Yeah, I think it does. I think running can help with the healing process. I think a lot of people who run are running in memory of somebody. I think they're running for a cause close to their heart, and I think running gives them that focus, and it gives them that opportunity to raise money, to give back, or to help others not be in a similar situation to themselves. And I think it gives a real focus.
Yeah, so that was interesting what you were saying about. Did you say 85% of places are charities? That's huge, isn't it?
It is huge. Yeah, it's quite different to other races, but yeah, because the race is organised by Tommy's for many other good causes, that's really, really important to us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what's the atmosphere like on the course then? Obviously you've got all these activations and all these groups taking place and reenactments. What's the crowd support like on the day?
The crowd support is absolutely fabulous. I mean, our runners tell us that is one of their favourite things about the day, just the support on the course and the colour and the vibrancy and the noise. I mean, I've never personally run the race myself, which is a shame. But the runners tell us they absolutely adore the atmosphere. There's, as I mentioned before, there's 538 activities, and that's without taking into account the general public and the tourists that just simply happen to be in London on that day. I think we estimate for every runner we have, they bring along around 4 supporters. So you think, with 20,000 runners, there's 80,000 spectators there on the day, creating that atmosphere along the route, combined with people who are just generally in London on that day. So we think there must be at least over 100,000 people kind of cheering on the runners, which just gives them that added kind of momentum and support when they really need it, because running a half marathon isn't easy. It's a real challenge. So yeah, the support on the route is absolutely incredible.
So, I mean, London is obviously a very complex place to host an event. What did it take to secure a route through Westminster and the city? Just take us through those early days of like, where do you even start with that? That must be a logistical nightmare, really.
It is. I mean, and that's not Tommy's area of expertise. Tommy's, we are a pregnancy and baby charity, and that. So obviously, we worked in partnership with experts. There's so many things to think about. Local businesses and residents. Emergency access to hospitals, bus diversions, and especially in London, the night bus diversions as well, because I guess that's an added complexity that London has, which other cities don't have. You may not have night buses. So yeah, we work in partnership with the person we worked in partnership with, a lady called Yvonne Nicholson in the early days, who put together our route, and obviously we had good support from the city and Westminster as well, who were able to help advise. But yeah, that's not something that I or Tommy's can take credit for, because creating routes through central London definitely doesn't fall into the remit of a baby charity.
Was that a long process though to get the route agreed and to get everything in place for that first running of the event?
Closing down central London isn't easy. And as I mentioned before, we decided that we wanted to try and make it happen in, I think it was December 2014, and that first race didn't happen until March 2018. So it was a long process, but we got there, and very happy that we did.
So what's race morning like, kind of behind the scenes of the event? Because obviously as a runner, we just turn up and we run it, don't we? We get there a bit early, we visit the loo, we make sure we've got all our kit on, and then we just run it. There must be a lot going on behind the scenes of a race like this. Like what time does everything start for you?
Yeah, so on race morning, so the Great Run Company, who are our operational delivery partner, they are the ones who are in charge of all of the operations on the day, and we're so fortunate to work with them, because obviously the Great North Run has been going for 45 years now, and they are so experienced and they are so slick. But obviously they can't do it alone. They work in partnership with so many agencies, so everyone from the City of London Corporation, Westminster City Council, Transport for London, all of the security companies, the emergency services. And I think the day for the Great Run Company starts at about 2 a.m. So their team are up in the very, very early hours, putting the road closures in, implementing the bus diversions, getting all of the signage up, getting the infrastructure up. It's a tight timeline with, the night buses needing access until a certain amount of time. We have to wait until that has kind of happened before we can start setting up around Trafalgar Square, which is really our event hub. And then for me personally, I'm up a little bit later. It's more like 5:30, 6 for me. I get a little bit of a lie-in, and I walk out there, and it's dark and there's no traffic, because by that point the road closures are in, and London is like a ghost town.
That must feel really weird, actually. Yeah,
it really does. And that is like the pinch myself moment. It's like, oh my gosh, like Tommy's, all of our partners together, we have closed down central London, and 20,000 runners are about to descend, 100,000 spectators, and we are about to this year's race raise £18 million for 800 different charities. And the feeling is just, it really is a pinch myself moment that we've made this happen. And then, as the runners begin to arrive, and the music starts to play, because obviously we can only put music on at a certain time because of the local residents. The atmosphere builds, and it's so exciting. And my role, I've from the very first race, I've always been there at the start line to cheer every single runner over the start line. So I am there with my pom-poms and I cheer every single person over that start line. And it's such a proud, humbling and emotional moment, because it means so much to everybody who's running. They've trained so hard, they've fundraised, and finally, they are there doing the run, raising money for charity. And it's just the most incredible feeling. I feel so lucky.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps as you're talking. Yes, that sounds incredible. Do you know, like, do you ask people whether it's a first half marathon? Like, what proportion of people are
We do,
doing
we do
first?
we do capture that on our registration form, yeah, but I don't actually have that. I don't have that off the top of my head. I'm afraid I can't answer that question.
Yeah, because that's a huge deal, though, isn't it? If that's your first half marathon, like I can just imagine the emotion of people crossing over the line,
Yeah, I
having.
think I think because there are I know it's a high proportion. I just can't give you the exact percentage, because I see it's so many of our places are charity places. It's very hard to get a charity place year on year, because obviously there's only so many times you can ask people to
Yeah,
support your fundraising, and when you've got a minimum fundraising target of £300-400, it's very difficult to raise that year on year.
yeah.
So a lot of our runners are fresh runners, but I don't have the exact percentage, I'm
Yeah. Oh no,
afraid.
no. I was just wondering out of interest. Yeah,
No,
I should have
I'm
asked you
annoyed
beforehand,
because
shouldn't
we
I?
do capture it. I just don't have that
Yeah.
to hand.
No, I was just thinking back to my first half marathon because I did that for charity, and I remember crying at the finish line, like with relief, but
Yeah.
also pride, because yeah, it's a huge moment, isn't it?
It's a real huge moment, yeah, and it means
Yeah,
so much. It means so
yeah.
much.
So, I mean, what are the main challenges for an event of this size now? Like running it, is there anything that is a struggle and that you're constantly like struggling with? I'm just thinking if there's other event directors out there, might help
Yeah,
them a little bit.
the main challenge we have as Tommies is not being able to facilitate the demand that we have for the race. So that causes, that causes challenges with us. Obviously, we had to introduce a ballot for the public in year 2 of the race, but for this year's race, for the first time, we weren't actually able to facilitate the demand from the charity sector either. So we had applications in for far more many charity places than we actually had charity places available. So for the first time, we had to introduce a ballot to enable new charities to take part in the race, because we simply just didn't have the overall number of places. So that was one specific challenge that we had, and we had to implement new processes to kind of manage the demands. But the other challenges, that they're mainly operational challenges, and they're challenges which are out of our control. So for example, last year we had a challenge in that there was a very important military wreath laying ceremony that had to take place the day of our race, and the military wreath laying ceremony was happening at the exit of our finish line funnel. So essentially, we were 20,000 runners needed to exit the finish, but there would be a military wreath laying ceremony there, so it couldn't happen. And so the challenge that the solution that the Great Run Company came up with was to reverse the route, which was an absolutely brilliant suggestion.
Genius.
It
Yeah.
was genius, and it worked so well, and so much so that we've actually kept the route reversal in place for this year, and it's going to be how we run the route moving forward. And I think runners like it more because there's a really long section of the route along the embankment, and in previous years that had been at the end of the route, but now that is right at the beginning of the route. So runners run that long stretch, and then they have a more interesting kind of weavy experience within the city. So it's actually been a huge success for the
So is
event.
that a permanent
It's now
change then?
it's now going to be a permanent change, yeah. So it's things which are out of our control like that. And 2 years ago we had a situation whereby the weather changed at the last minute. It was unexpected, very, very high winds, which we weren't expecting with the time of year that the race falls. But the winds were forecast to be so high that the paper cups that were due to be handed out at the water stations would have blown over. So I know at the last minute we had to implement a solution whereby we reverted to handing out plastic bottles at the drink stations, which we had to do because the winds were so high. So it's things like that which are out of our control that pose the challenges. But as I say, the Great Run Company is so experienced. We feel so lucky to work with them.
Yeah. And are costs rising for you in events the same way that they're rising for kind of the average consumer on the streets? Is that a challenge as well?
Yeah, it is. I mean, of course, costs rise with inflation, and then the more runners we have, simply, the more runners we have, the more medals we have to buy, the more toilets we need to provide. So yeah, there's inflationary costs, and there's costs that rise in hand with that go hand in hand with the rise in participants. But on saying that, the more participants we have, the more we raise. So yes, costs are rising, but as long as we can continue to slowly and steadily grow the overall number of runners, that's it means that the race is still it works very well.
Yeah, and is there scope for you to grow the event and accept more runners on? I mean, it's a nice problem to have, isn't it, when you've got demand
Yeah,
is so
exactly.
high. But I mean, it must be frustrating for you as well, not being able to accommodate everybody.
It is, but also we understand our strategy has always been to grow slowly and steadily and not try and run before we can walk. The first race we had 10,000 runners. This year we have 20,000 runners. So we've gradually grown year on year, and we would love to continue to do that. But obviously, the more runners we have, the longer the roads stay open for, and the longer the roads stay open for, the more disruption that causes. So it's a delicate balance. So we would love to grow the race, but slowly and steadily, in line with what we've always been doing.
Yeah. How was the period during the pandemic for you when lockdown happened? That must have been a challenge.
Oh, that was one of the worst days of my life. Like the London landmarks were, I think we were the first race to be cancelled. So in 2020, I think we went into lockdown something like the 14th or 15th of March, and the race was due to take place on the 25th of March. So we just missed out on the race happening. And then because it was such an uncertain time, we didn't know if we were postponing the race or cancelling the race. So I think we postponed 3 times. And then we postponed to September, and then to March, and then to May. And then the race eventually happened in the August. And we were the first race back from the pandemic, following the pandemic as well. So when the restrictions were lifted and we were able to, the race was able to take place, it was such an important day, I think, for the whole running industry, and indeed just sports in general, because we were the first big event back in the UK. So there were a lot of eyes on us, and I always remember like ITV and BBC News were there, and I was interviewed, and I was literally in tears. Like it'd been such a tough time. Like to finally be back was just the most magical moment. And I remember we had to deliver a socially distant event. We had to get everybody to sign a health declaration form, to do the lateral flow test in advance of the race. There were all sorts, so we delivered a socially distant event. Charities could only have 6 people maximum at their cheer stations. All of the cheer stations had to be spaced out and allocated a place along the route. It was quite the operation. But
how did that work in practice for runners then, in terms of being socially distant? I didn't do any races during that period because I had horrible anxiety around it all, as I'm sure many of us did. But how was that in practice for the participants?
Well, the participant had to sign the health declaration form in advance, and do the lateral flow test and confirm that they were okay to participate. And then, if I remember, the Great Run Company implemented a system whereby the flow was the number of participants that crossed the start line per minute was much less than what would usually be the case. So the participants were released onto the route at a much slower rate than they would normally be to help manage that.
Yeah, gosh, what a challenging year that must have been for you all.
Yeah, it was really tough, and obviously, you know, the impact that it had on the charity sector was huge. You know, events are such an important fundraising medium for so many charities. So to have that taken away from the charity sector for over a year was, it was a really tough time.
Yeah. So what can runners expect from this year's then if they're looking forward to it and registered? It's happening on it's the 12th of April.
It is the 12th of April, my birthday. So what a way to celebrate my birthday. I hope they can expect one of the best days of their lives. Like, they can expect a very well organized race. It's going to be smooth. The weather is going to be good. Let's say it will be good. It will be, you know, kind of cloudy, a little bit of sun, no wind, hopefully not torrential rain. And they can expect the most electric atmosphere. They can expect to feel really included, well supported. They all get a brilliant goodie bag at the end of the race. We haven't released our medal yet. We are releasing that next week, but the medal is a cracker this year. And I hope they can just expect to feel really good about themselves. And I hope that they will have one of the best days of their lives.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And if people weren't lucky enough to get in this year, they can pre-register for ballot entry next year. Is that right?
Yeah, they can indeed. Yeah, pre-register for next year is live now. They just need to go to the home page of our website, llhm.co.uk. There's a big pre-register button there. The race next year will take place on the 4th of April 2027. That's the in-principle date we have. So next year is also going to be our 10-year anniversary. So a super special year. And it's also going to be a really proud moment as well. To date, we've raised around £83 million through the race. So I expect by race day next week, we will have raised at least 90 million, which means through next year's race, the 10-year edition, we will exceed 100 million. So
incredible.
It's going to be a real celebration next year. If anyone would like to pre-register, just go to our website. The pre-register form is live, and the ballot will be the ballot will happen in June.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So, I mean, what does the future look like for London Landmarks Half then? So you've changed the route direction. Have you got any other big plans over the next 10 years?
Oh, watch this space. As I mentioned before, our aspiration is to grow the race, continue to grow the race slowly and steadily, and just to take on board learnings from each year, not to try and run before we can walk, and just to continue to make the race feel as inclusive and as accessible as possible. Just to really build on what we've already got.
Yeah. And have you got any tips for somebody out there who's thinking of maybe doing the first half marathon with you? What would you say to them if they're feeling a bit nervous? Or
I would totally encourage them to pre-register, try their luck in the ballot, and if they're not successful, to get a charity place, and to do that over the summer. And that gives 8-9 months to train. Start off with a park run, then take on a 10k, and then gradually build from there. Everybody is welcome at the LLHM. As I mentioned, we don't have an elite field. We celebrate, our last finisher is escorted to the finish line by 3 classic minis, but also working with Team Finish Together this year. Our first, bib numbers 1 to 5 are awarded to the top 5 fundraisers. They're not awarded to the fastest runners. It's all about, just being as inclusive and as welcoming as possible. So I would highly recommend, if anyone is considering it, to sign up, get yourself to parkrun, take on a 10k, and then work to LLHM 2027.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much, Leah, for joining me today and sharing the
No
incredible story behind the London Landmarks Half Marathon. It's been fascinating to hear where the idea came from. And congratulations on what sounds like a wonderful event. I think you've convinced me that I'm going to go and hit pre-register now.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, hope to see you on the start line next year for the 10-year
Well, I'll see you
edition.
at the finish line if you're the one with the pom-poms.
Yeah, I'll be there at the start and finish line. So yeah, look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, well, if you're lucky enough to have a place this year, soak it all in and let us know how it goes. And if not, then it might be time to enter that ballot. We'll put some links in our show notes. And as always, you can find more episodes of the UKRunChat podcast wherever you download your podcasts from. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or tag us in your running adventures. Until next time.